All right. So what we're looking at today is uCommerce 6.7 for Sitecore 8. And specifically, before we dive into this, let me talk a little bit about what uCommerce is. So uCommerce is an e-commerce platform that hooks into content management systems, Sitecore and others. The idea is that we want to bring the world of content and commerce together in one unified platform, creating a seamless experience between the two and getting that interplay going between content and commerce. The second aspect of uCommerce is the way that we've architected the platform. At the heart of uCommerce lies a principle we call framework first, which is all about the way the platform is put together. The idea being that everything is open and can be modified and extended simply because different customers, different requirements, even if they're selling the same doohickey. That's the idea. And I'm going to show you how all that works. Before I do, let's take a look at the overall feature set of uCommerce. So the type of e-commerce solution that fits uCommerce is one where there's some integration involved. There might be an ERP system, a CRM system to deal with some aspects of doing online business, and the feature set here reflects that. And on the front end, what you'll see is typically multiple sales channels, maybe in different markets, maybe to different customer segments, and we have sort of a strong focus on B2C. But because uCommerce as a platform is open, we also do B2B if necessary, so it can be accommodated inside uCommerce. But the core feature set is definitely more skewed towards business to consumer oriented sites. At the core of uCommerce, we have our product information management system. The idea is here you establish taxonomy, you define what you want to know about your products, what are the relevant bits and bobs of information about individual products in there, set all that up in the PIM, and start to create products based on that. It's very similar to what you know from Sitecore, where you set up templates. In uCommerce, it's just called a definition instead, but it's basically the same thing, but geared towards e-commerce instead. On top of that, you can imagine our PIM over here as a big bucket holding all the products that you're interested in selling online. On top of that, we add structure through catalogs to sort of categorize and make it easier to find certain products. Also to tailor catalogs that sort of fit a certain customer segment or a certain market. You may not be able to distribute all the products you have in all the markets that you operate in. So individual catalogs addresses that. On top of that, we have a multi-channel foundation that adds additional channels to sell through. So the most common scenario would be you have one online channel, but you could have multiple, one servicing one area of the continent, another one servicing the US or whatever. It might also be B2C and B2B in combination. These are basically different stores, right? On top of that, content management. This is where we tie together commerce and content. The idea is that we go in and e-commerce enable the content management system. If you can hear some banging, I apologize. We have some handymen running around banging on the walls. Sorry about that. So we'll see if we can manage even though that's happening. Web content management, the integration between the two platforms. So this is where we create that seamless integration where you can manage content and commerce in the same system. So for Sitecore specifically, it means that we e-commerce enable DMS, we e-commerce enable search, we e-commerce enable engagement plans. All of it is available so you can sort of do the things that you're familiar with in Sitecore, but with an e-commerce slant to it. Social commerce, all about creating engagement on the website. So basically, we sort of a popular way of saying it is we try and get existing customers to sell to new customers by generating content like reviews, ratings, things like that to get a little bit of a community going on the website. We have simple auto management tools in here. So in most cases, uCommerce will be integrated with a backend ERP system like SAP or NAV or Axe, Great Plains, something like that, and they will deal with auto management. But we also have auto management capabilities in uCommerce for scenarios where you need just simple tools to deal with it. So take an example like a retail chain of stores, for example. They may be receiving orders online, and they want to fulfill these orders in store via click and collect. And so auto management in uCommerce is a way of dealing with that. So customer places order online, the order is then routed into the physical store where the sales clerk will sort of be notified that you have a series of orders, and they can do what we call distributed order management. So one sales clerk in one store will manage only orders for that. Another one in another area of the country will deal with the orders relevant to that. There should be only one slide. There's a question in chat. So hopefully you're seeing the circle with core functionalities here. Marketing here is all about, I just want to make sure that it's the right one. It is, good. So marketing here is all about merchandising. So basically this dynamic price rules, so the ability to change prices on the fly for individual customers or groups of customers based on what they're purchasing. So discounted, basically. Integration, key piece of uCommerce. So, and I'm going to talk about integration in more detail towards the end, so you can get a sense of how we hook into the overall ecosystem of your business via uConnector. And of course, there are APIs for everything, and search. Again, we uCommerce enable all that. But the secret sauce is basically the integration between the content management system and the commerce platform. So in this case, we're looking at Sitecore integration. So bringing the two worlds together, the goal of this is to get each of the platforms to deal with the aspects of doing business online that they do best. So for Sitecore, it's presentation, personalization, experience, all that good stuff. And for commerce, uCommerce, it's all about the rules and the gears of getting everything going. Framework first, this is the way that we put together the platform for you. So this is the way that we think about doing software. So rather than just piling features onto uCommerce as a platform, what we do instead is we take a step back from that and we look at the individual domains of e-commerce and say, well, how can we address each of these spaces with a framework first? So how can we distill the core rules down into a framework, basically? Once that's done, we then add the features on top of the framework. But the beauty of this model is that we work with the framework once established in exactly the same way as our customers can. And so this is the key to actually getting a highly customized solution, because you may get away with just using the out-of-the-box features that we have. But if they're not enough, or if you need something else, framework first ensures that you can go in and change the existing behavior or even add new stuff in there, new UIs, new discount rules, new ways of calculating prices, new everything, basically. This is how everything is done. There's a question in chat, is dynamic pricing by DOIP or login? It can be both, actually. By default, we do not have any rules or targets, as we call them, that target that, but it can be added in. So Sitecore can provide the information, and you can then target that as part of the normal rules. I'll show you how that works in a little bit. Let me just increase the chat here. Good, so that's that. Let's dive into the actual demo here so you can take a look at what's what. So bring up a browser here. And what I'm using is the demo site for uCommerce. As you can see, we have demo sites for the various versions of uCommerce. And so you can have a play with uCommerce after the fact here. So you can see front end and back end for Sitecore. So starting with the front end, what I'm looking at here is Avenue Clothing. This is our demo site that we build on top of uCommerce and Sitecore. It is an additional install on top of uCommerce and Sitecore, and it is optional. You do not have to install it. The goal of Avenue Clothing is to provide you a working example of how to put together simple e-commerce scenarios. In this case, it's B2C related. And just how could you do checkout as I'm doing now? How could you check out there, step through? The idea is to show you how all the APIs in uCommerce work, and so you can remix when you need to do your own sites here. This is, of course, an addition to the platform documentation that we have. So you can go and read a bunch of articles very in-depth about how to do things, or you can just go and see how everything works here. So what we see partners doing, new partners especially, is use Avenue Clothing as a reference, either to build on top or just have sitting right next to the site you're actually building as a reference to see how to do things. The idea is to remove barriers when you're building, so you don't have to figure out everything from scratch. It's built on Twitter Bootstrap, so it's also responsive. So it will adapt to the browser size. So this is roughly what it would look like on a mobile device, for example. In Sitecore, you have two basic ways of doing sort of mobile device websites: responsive, which is what we're doing here, or adaptive, which uses Sitecore's capabilities for using different devices to display. Avenue Clothing here is fully open source. It's released under the MIT license, so you can get at the source code. You can see how everything is put together, and there's no sort of matching going on. You can go and take a look at that on in the source code after the fact if you're interested. But let's take a look at Sitecore backend here. And I'm going to enter my very secret password, so please look away while I do that. It is the standard login details, so if you want to have a look after the fact, go ahead and log in and play around with it. I should mention that the demo site here resets every day at 6 a.m. European Standard Time, so don't create any proof of concepts or anything you want to keep in here because it will be gone the next day, which would be problematic. So we're looking at Sitecore 8 here, and I should mention that Sitecore, we support also earlier versions of Sitecore all the way back to version 7.0. So if you want to, if you have an older client that you need to e-commerce enable, uCommerce will absolutely work for that. There are some capabilities that do not work in the very early versions related to some of the commerce stuff that we're looking at, but I'll make sure and point that out when we get to it. So first, what I want to show you is the native uCommerce tools. So when we find ourselves in a CMS, we have two levels of integration we can achieve, and I've sort of imaginatively called it level 1 and level 2. So level 1 here is all about bringing our native management tools right into Sitecore. So everything related to managing commerce is right here inside the shell. So once you're logged in, you have access to all of it, if you have the permissions to do so, of course. So uCommerce has these 5 areas that we're looking at today. The catalog foundation up here to deal with stores or the sales channels, catalogs, products, the categorization, pricing, and all that, putting it all together, making it ready to present online. The transaction foundation for order management, basket shipments, payments, all the things that you would need to actually check out. And marketing for doing the merchandising rules, dynamic pricing, and all the things there. A little bit of reporting. This is more of an area where you would hook in and create your own reports. We rely on the ERP system for financial reporting, CRM system for customer-related reporting. But if you need sort of specialized KPIs right in the commerce platform, this is the place to hook in. And of course, a bunch of settings for managing all of the different settings around your system. So let me expand stores, and as you can see, it is a multi-stores e-commerce platform, so you can set up multiple. And the way it works is that a store it's almost like a website in Sitecore, but it is different because it's all about sales. So the way it works is that looking at a site like Avenue Clothing here, there are actually 2 components to it. There's the website that you know from Sitecore that drives all the presentation. So all the stuff we were looking at before, all the dynamic nature of the site is driven by Sitecore all the way through. There are no things specific to the e-commerce platform that sits outside of Sitecore. It is all layouts and sub-layouts, all the things you're used to from Sitecore. But the other aspect is figuring out which products should be sellable, because as you can see, we do have a multi-store set up here in the back end, but we're only looking at one store. But the way it works is you tie the store into the website, so those two work in combination to create the commerce experience, and that's what's happening here. You just basically hook it up to a website and you're good to go. Next level is the catalog level. This is all about combining product pricing and structure to make it sellable. And as you can see, I've just got one catalog right now, the demo catalog, but you can have as many as you want. And the pricing aspect, you can see here, you can attach multiple price lists to the same catalog to enable multi-currency scenarios, for example. So if you're selling in multiple countries or in the same country but in different currencies, this is one way of doing it. This is also a feature that's relevant for B2B, because a price list, after all, is just something that you hook onto the catalog and you change the pricing here. So for B2B, it's very common to see the same currency used over and over again, but for different named price lists. So if I log in, I may get my own price list, or my organization has its own price list. And that's possible because products will change pricing depending on the context that is displayed in. So it may be different currencies, or it may be completely different pricing. And it's also something that's completely overridable via code if necessary. So if you have very complicated B2B rules, well, this is one way of doing it. Another way would be to override the pricing components to reach back to the ERP system and maybe produce the final prices there, depending on your purchase history or whatever else. Next level is the categorization level. So, and one of the areas where we're different from Sitecore is here, because a product, as I mentioned, lives in the PIM in a flat structure and is then shared out across categories, catalogs, and stores. So it's a very natural way of thinking about catalogs and e-commerce, that a product will live in different contexts, different areas of your website, whereas an item in Sitecore tends to live outside of or inside one node and nowhere else, basically, typically at least. So let me just see if I can mute everybody here. There we go. So different aspects. So you will see products here pop up in different areas. You can do variant management, you can do all sorts of things, reviews, related items, all the things you would expect from a commerce platform. But one of the things I want to point your attention to is this definition here, which is part of how you define taxonomy. So if you need to sell different types of products, you probably also have different needs for the information that you store about products. And so a definition in uCommerce, as I mentioned, is very similar to a template in Sitecore. And you can see the different types of products I'm selling: a shirt, a shoe, and accessory. So it maps directly to the types of product we have over here, right? Shirts, shoes, and accessories. Some of them carry around variant information. So a shirt, for example, will have variant information, color, size, and color. They are indeed variant properties, and so we can start to maintain a second level and making a product family, whereas an accessory, for example, does not have any variant properties, and so it's a standalone product. One of the things you can do with these things here is you can share fields across them, and a sort of a classic is SEO information. You need meta information, you need meta titles and keywords and things like that, and you could create all those fields multiple times across all the definitions, making sure the spelling is the same and so on and so forth. But you can also use inheritance, right? So I'm just going to do a new definition and a new title so you can see what I'm talking about. So SEO, and I want to share that out across these guys here. So if we go up to the definition level here, what you will see is the relationship between these definitions. As you can see, there are no relationships right now. They just sit here next to each other. That's it. But the SEO fields here will probably be relevant for all of the different types of products I'm selling, and so I can use inheritance to share those fields across. So I can say, well, shoe, my shirt should inherit from SEO, and so providing the fields to that, and you'll see the change here. You can see the SEO definition is now providing fields for shirt, and so we're good to go for shirt. We also need to make the same change for a shoe and for the accessory, so we have the same fields available across that scenario. So let's go back to the overview so you can see what I'm talking about here. So you'll now see that SEO is in fact providing fields for both shirt, shoe, and accessory, and so it's just a way of dealing with more complicated relationships between things if necessary. That's definitions, and that's catalogs. There's much more in here. One thing that might be interesting to point out is the fact that media, of course, is something that's shared with Sitecore. So every product media uploaded to Sitecore is available to uCommerce, so you maintain that there. So we don't try and reinvent the wheel anywhere where we can avoid it. So media is one example of us bringing stuff into the catalogs from Sitecore because it makes sense. User information is another, customer information a third. So for a store, for example, we can actually start to create customer accounts on the fly for people checking out on the website. Members is basically just a user in Sitecore that will be created after checkout if this little check mark here is checked off. All right, let me show you very quickly order management capabilities. So what it is, it's basically all about this workflow that's configured here. So what you can do is you can change that workflow, of course. Everything is done with framework first. And so we can't say for sure what the workflow processing will be like, so of course you can change it. The second aspect is, of course, managing the orders flowing in, so you can change order states, you can override what happens when you're moving orders around. We sort of make sure that an order flows through the correct order flow, so you can't just move it to completed state if it hasn't passed through the steps that lie in between new and completed. And of course, you can do business logic as part of this, sending out text alerts, sending out maybe notifying warehouses or freight carriers or things like that. It's all part of the thing here. And you can also use these tools to place new orders from scratch. So it's very common to have to receive orders through different channels, not just the online channel. You may have orders coming through phone, fax, or whatever. And so being able to place new orders right here in the management tools make it very convenient for a salesperson to go in and just plot in the order they want, manage shipments and all that, so you can sort of get the order sent out on behalf of the customers. These tools here can also be used to place orders or to promote baskets on behalf of customers. So if a customer is in here and say, well, I can't complete my order on the front end. Well, I have a basket out on the front end here, right there, and I can open that up, and I can actually go and complete this on behalf of me, filling out the information that I want or cancel it. So it's completely up to the salesperson how that should be done. All the management UIs in here are completely extensible. So you can add new tabs, you can add new pieces of UI that support a custom workflow. A very common one we see again and again is printing labels for packaging. So a new little tab up here for that. You can also remove the existing one. So if you don't want sales reps to be able to manage discounts, well, remove that completely or do it in a different way. Alrighty, and actually talking about pipelines and business logic around that. So when you're managing orders in here, what you're doing underneath the covers is you're triggering our pipeline systems in here, and it's something different from the way Sitecore does it. Well, it's the same concept, but it's a different implementation. It's just something to be aware of. But we use a similar extension method to Sitecore. So if Sitecore developers tend to be familiar with pipelines, and once they know Sitecore pipelines, very easy to translate that knowledge to the way we do things. And let me just show you what one of those guys look like, because it's also a good time to talk about extensibility. So let me show you a pipeline here real quick. So the checkout pipeline is a classic. This is the one used for completing an order. So once a basket is changed to be an order, this is basically the pipeline that does it. And the way to work it is you can extend it to add new steps in here. So something else you want happen as part of the checkout flow, for example. In uCommerce prior to 6.7, you would have to modify these files directly, which would cause problems around upgrades and things like that. But in uCommerce 6.7 that we're looking at today, we introduced a new concept that we call apps. And an app is basically a way to plug in new functionality into uCommerce, where you can go in and override certain functionalities. So we can create a new app right here. We can do a new configuration file for that app to override things in uCommerce, my app. And say we want to add a new step to the checkout pipeline, for example. One of the ways we can do it is we can open up this file here. It's empty right now. We can go and define a new component like that. This is how you would do it in the old version. In the new version, we have a concept called a partial component, which will enable you to override settings and components based on the ID. So let me show you real quick. So if I want the checkout pipeline, it's called checkout. So what I'm saying here is I want to hook into that. The parameters is a way to say I want to override a certain aspect of that. And so I can now start to add a new step to the checkout pipeline, tell it where I want it to run. I want it to run last, and I can tell it which component I want to execute. And a component is sort of the core building block of uCommerce. And so everything is a component, and you can just sort of start to wire it up like this. So just by virtue of having this app in here in this folder makes uCommerce pick it up and execute it as part of this. And of course here I could say send text to phone or something like that, and it makes upgrades really easy because you're now not actually modifying anything in uCommerce, you're just adding the things on you need. So it should be familiar for a Sitecore developer. You can also see in apps that it is actually something that we use ourselves. So you can see here I have something called Sitecore Commerce Connect. So it's an app that we ship out of the box for Sitecore to enable uCommerce inside Sitecore. So let me show you something really cool before we move on. So Commerce Connect is all about bringing the commerce experience into Sitecore. So we've taken a look at some of the management UIs that we have in uCommerce itself. Let me show you how this works inside Sitecore. So there are two aspects to it: catalog and transactions. And I'm going to start with catalog. So one of the things that actually make this site work here is the fact that we have Commerce Connect supported. And so you'll notice here that we have a new node in the Sitecore content editor that's called uCommerce, and that opens up access to all the data we were looking at just before in uCommerce itself, but this data is now exposed to Sitecore as well. So Sitecore knows very intimately what we mean when we say there is a category called scarves. You can see it even enables us to edit all that information right inside Sitecore. The reason we did it was not so much to have another editor, because that's already been taken care of in uCommerce, but it is, if this is a more familiar way of dealing with data, it's totally possible to change things in here. The primary reason was actually to enable DMS, right? So you'll notice the profile cards over here. So as I'm navigating through products here, Sitecore will know what products and categories and catalogs I'm navigating and will track that like it does for normal content. But now it's happening for products instead. So we're extending Sitecore's tracking to commerce. And that's important because once I start to assign profile cards to my individual products or categories, Sitecore will be able to start to personalize my shopping experience for me, right? So again, it works in exactly the same way as content. From Sitecore's perspective, there is no difference between a catalog item and a content item, but there is a very real difference in the value generated, because once you start selling that stuff, that's goes straight to your bottom line, right? Another side effect of this is the fact that presentation is dealt with in a very standard Sitecore way. So this category here is presented using the same tools that Sitecore developers are familiar with. So when I go to the details here, you'll notice that I have layouts and sub-layouts already set up on this guy, and that's actually something that's been defined through the definitions that we have. So we also expose that information to Sitecore. So you'll notice here the definitions that we took a look at before in uCommerce, the SEO one we just created, is actually right here. And so Sitecore knows what the different fields mean, and we are able to go in and assign standard values like a layout or sub-layout. So again, should be very familiar to a Sitecore developer. The final thing that this piece of the Commerce Connect integration enables is the ability to search through Sitecore in commerce as well as content, right? So I'm now using Sitecore Search from V7, and you can see here it's actually indexing all of our products as we go. What this means is that you can use the standard Sitecore Search to search across commerce and content, and it's also possible to swap out the search engine. So if you're not happy with Lucene out of the box, want to use Elasticsearch, Covio, Solar, something else, plug that in and it will start to index the products from uCommerce as well, because Sitecore takes care of all that. So that's the catalog piece of Commerce Connect. So, but the next aspect of this, of course, is once we're done browsing, we'll start to check out. And so transactions become important, and that's the second aspect of Commerce Connect. What we've done with with our integration with Commerce Connect is basically make Sitecore aware of the transactions that are occurring through uCommerce. And so at a sort of a very basic level, we provide an API for Sitecore to use to access uCommerce in a standard way. So that's one thing. The thing with Commerce Connect is that it will reach out to Sitecore and make it aware of things that happen here, right? So a classic would be when we're checking out here, the industry standard for checkouts is around 2.4%. Sort of variations within businesses and all that, but the overall general checkout rate is 2.4%, right? So that means there's a lot of room to improve with regards to transactions and abandoned baskets. And one of the things that we can do with Commerce Connect is we can start to hook uCommerce into engagement plans, which are of course perfect for after sales or during sales automation. And let me show you how that works. So we need to go back to the Launchpad here and then open the Marketing Control Center. And the thing I want to show you here specifically is the engagement plans that Commerce Connect ships with. So these are actually engagement plans that Sitecore deliver out of the box that we then feed information into. And I think the most important one is this one here, the abandoned carts engagement plan. And basically what's happening here is as customers are creating carts through uCommerce, we're also making Sitecore available that they're there. So this engagement plan here will be, I'm not sure it's that readable, but basically what happens is that once new baskets are created in uCommerce, they will be added to this state. When a day goes by, Sitecore will start to operate on that particular basket, provided the customer didn't check out. So what's happening is basically Sitecore's reaching out to the customer that has that particular basket, provided we have the information. Email is all that's required. And starting to email them and say, well, come back, please, finalize your order. Maybe you want a voucher code. Maybe you want something else to do that. And so we can maybe bump up those 2.4%. The beauty here is that this is something Sitecore ships as part of Commerce Connect, and we hook into that and provide all the information necessary. Also, actually, is talking about voucher codes. Let me just They are, of course, a natural part of uCommerce. I haven't shown you the merchandising aspects of uCommerce yet, but I'll show you that in a little bit. Another aspect where we can tie in nicely is for when a new order is placed. So it's very similar to the order processing that you saw before, but here you can do more marketing-esque activities. So remember the review system that we talked about right at the top of the demo. Well, a natural thing to plug into the new order placed engagement plan would be to email out to the customer and say, thank you so much for your order. It's been 2 weeks. Could you please review your experience? Please add a new product review to the product, or review us on a Trustpilot type site or something like that. And that just becomes an automated part of the post-sales process through engagement plans in Sitecore. And of course, we have the additional tools to store reviews and make them available on products, so it all ties together nicely. But let's return to the abandoned basket here, because I talked about voucher codes, and let me show you how that would actually work in uCommerce. So we go back to uCommerce, we go to the marketing area of uCommerce where we do dynamic pricing. And you'll notice first that we're seeing the stores that we saw before, and that's because you can differentiate the marketing campaigns that you do across stores and do different things in different markets. So for the US market, maybe you want to do one type of campaign, for the UK market something else, for Australia something third. So you can share or not. So you'll see here that for the COM side here, I'm running 3 campaigns. I'm running exactly the same 3 campaigns for the Singapore side, but it can be differentiated. And so these campaigns here are a grouping of the activities that you're performing at any given point of time. So it will adapt, it will activate and deactivate automatically based on these fields here, and this is how you could actually associate a campaign to a given sales channel. The actual activities sit underneath here, and this is where we start to talk about dynamic price rules and stuff like that. So let me show you a really simple one. This is a discounted unit price, and the model we use we call advertise, act, and award. The idea is that this is the customer journey that needs to happen to ultimately trigger a discount. So first we need to let the customer know via advertising that we have a discount. So whenever this product is being displayed, this particular discount will also come into context and be available for stimulating the customer. The act piece is criteria that will determine whether the customer actually did what we wanted them to do. So in this case, buy this particular product. And finally, the award is the actual discount itself, so amount off unit, and the unit we refer to is, of course, this one here. So it ties together like that. The beauty here is that these targets here, of course, can be, you can have multiple products configured or whatever, you can also combine them. So for this scenario here, we're dealing with a bundle scenario. So again, advertise, act, award, we are now advertising globally on the store that there is a bundle available, so it's something we're very keen on pushing. And here we're saying you should buy 2 products. You should buy this shirt and this tie together, and that will give you an amount off the order total. So rather than the unit as we saw before, now it's total. And now we're getting into the voucher code. So say we have that abandoned basket engagement plan from before. Well, vouchers is also a natural part of uCommerce. So I've set up a batch here, 10,000 that you can generate right here inside Sitecore. So say you want another 100,000 promo codes. This is all you need. So now we have 110, probably more than we need right now. So it works as another criteria that needs to be satisfied. And so this is a very classic promo code in the sense that you have a code, you trigger a discount on the order total. It's something you've seen a million times before. The codes here can be multi-use or single-use. So they can be personal or part of a print campaign, for example. But the beauty here is that because the promo code is just another type of target, it works in combination with the other targets. And so the next one I want to show you is an example where we're combining the promo code with a product. And so what's happening here is that it becomes effectively a product-specific promo code. You have to buy this baby alpaca throw and combine it with a promo code to make it work. So say you're at a convention or something like that, you want to push a new product. This is a perfect way of doing it. In fact, we've done it ourselves at some point. And here you'll see that the discount we're getting is not the classic amount off total, it's actually an amount off the unit price instead. So each unit will receive a discount if this is triggered. The beauty here is that these different types of targets, they all work in combination. So even though the different types here, there are not a lot of them, but when you start to combine them, you actually get into some very interesting scenarios. But more importantly, This is built using that framework first principle I talked about before. And so it means you can extend on these guys here. So if we don't support what you need out of the box, or if you need a slightly different behavior, you can plug your own discount type in. And when you do, it will not just be that one discount type. It can be combined with everything else in here. And so by plugging just one new item in, you will actually get maybe 10, 20 variations of it when you start to put it together with other types. A good example is this award type that we call free gift. This is sort of an outlier in the sense that it doesn't actually modify prices as you would expect. It actually adds new order lines to the baskets automatically. And so when we added that, we added it to support a situation where you buy one product and you get a sample for another. That was the core scenario we were trying to support. But it turned out that we could actually use it for a number of other things as well, like pre-sales and things like that, because if you combine a free gift with a promo code, for example, what you get into is a situation where you can sell these individual promo codes, maybe a pre-sale of a certain book that's not been released yet or something like that, or tickets. But when you come with the promo code in hand that you purchased previously, you can actually start to trigger free gifts based on that, which would be the product you actually purchased before. So it opens up for some pretty interesting scenarios in here. All right. Let's see. Any other questions? I think that does it for this piece here. If you find a project that you feel like would fit uCommerce, do reach out to myself or Paul or somebody else here at uCommerce. Set up a Q&A session. Spend an hour with us. I promise good company. And we can talk through the project to see if there's a good fit. All right. Thank you all for sticking with me during the demo here. I really appreciate so many showing up. And any questions, please address them to myself or to Paul. We are both very happy to answer your questions. Paul's email address is right here if you need him. Thank you very much and have a great day.